"24 Trial by Fire" is the third and final book in the 24 Live Another Day book trilogy. The trilogy in question is written by 3 different authors for each respective book. 24 Deadline was the first book in the series, written by James Swallow. The second one was 24 Rogue. That one was written by David Mack. And this one is Trial by Fire, written by Dayton Ward. In my last review of 24 Rogue, I mentioned that these 3 authors are very similar in nature because they've all written very, very similar books. But to be fair, it is under the same publisher who writes a lot of science fiction stuff, so that's fair. That's not to say that they're bad writers, because to be completely fair with you guys, you are good writers. You just might not understand the concept or format or structure of what 24 is and how it should be. Doesn't make you bad, because you have good and bad things to both books. In my review of 24 Rogue, I mentioned there are differences between the 24 Live Another Day book series and the 24 Declassified book series, chronologically speaking, reputably speaking, and when it comes down to the format. Chronologically speaking, 24 Declassified takes place before the TV show ever begins, and the 24 Live Another Day book series takes place after it ends and before the event series began. At least that's what I thought before I read Trial by Fire. And to be fair, a lot of people have reported the same, that this book series was going to bridge the gap between Season 8 and Live Another Day. And I thought I was going crazy when I read Trial by Fire, because that's not true. So I went back to the publisher's website, to the source, and I read what they had to say about the 24 Live Another Day book series. And I quote, "Jack Bauer is back in these tie-in novels to the groundbreaking TV show 24. At last, fans will learn what happened between the thrilling final moments of Season 8 and the new event series 24 Live Another Day. The books in the series are 24 Deadline, 24 Rogue, and 24 Trial by Fire." So as you can see, I'm not nuts. Even the website says that this series was going to bridge that gap, to figure out how he got from point A to point B. And to be completely fair, it does kind of bridge that gap. At least the first and second book do. The second book specifically bridges the gap the most. The third book is completely random because it goes back about 20 years in the past, before the 24 Declassified books take place. It's like before everything, which is kind of cool in some regards. But how it's a 24 Live Another Day book, I have no idea. I have no idea why this wasn't just called 24 Declassified Trial by Fire, because that's what it seems like. It doesn't seem like a Live Another Day book for a variety of different reasons. Not only chronologically speaking, but format speaking. The format has been the same in 24 Deadline and 24 Rogue. All it was basically a chapter heading and telling you what time it is on each chapter, following the very basic necessities of a 24 thing, right? You need to know what time you are in this real-time format. It's a book, it's not a TV show, so you have no other way of knowing what time it is other than for the book to tell you. So that's what the 24 Live Another Day book series has done to this point. Trial by Fire skipped that entirely. I had to check out the book and make sure I was reading the right one, because when I went through and I skipped ahead, I wanted to see the other chapter headings, and nothing. None of the chapters told you what time it was, which is not how 24 works. Come on, Dayton, if you're watching, you make me so frustrated because I like the book at the same time. But the format was so wrong, it was frustrating. That's the weird thing though, man. You had 24 chapters just like you're supposed to have, so that makes me think the book does indeed take place in the confines of 24 hours, like it should. But you don't tell the reader what time it is when they're reading. I mean, sometimes throughout the chapter you're going to have somebody say, "Oh, it's almost 6 o'clock," and you're like, "Oh, okay." But it's barely in there at all. Oh, I'm walking away. I never knew what time it was. Also, throughout the book, Jack uses a Russian accent, and thank goodness I don't read in a Russian accent. I only read in Jack Bauer, Kiefer Sutherland's normal American voice. And that's because I don't really see Jack using a Russian accent. Just like in the last book, 24 Rogue, Jack was using an Irish accent. This one, he was using a Russian. I believe Russian more than I do Irish, but still. If this was a TV show, the season would suck because people want to hear Jack Bauer growling in his American frustrated voice, "Where's the bomb?" That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear, "With knife," and I digress. So there is no real-time format. Jack Bauer's using a Russian accent. What's the story about? Well, that's just it. The story is actually good. It's somewhat similar to 24 Rogue. In 24 Rogue, it was about an arms deal that went bad with nuclear weapons, and Jack was thrown in the middle of it. Same thing here. Nuclear weapon, arms deal that goes bad. Two different bad guys clashing head to head. That's what 24 Rogue does. That's what 24 Trial by Fire does. Not really sure why the concept is so similar, but I actually liked how they did it in this book more so than how they did it in 24 Rogue. That might just be because of Dayton Ward. The story revolves around Jack Bauer. He's in Japan, and he's working with the CIA because CTU doesn't exist yet. He's working with CIA, and this is his first solo mission, which is kind of cool. And he's going undercover to work as part of the arms dealers gang, I guess you could say. And apart from him, they got two rival Japanese gangs that are going head to head, and there's these three bad guys. And not only that, you got the regular CIA, they're still there. You got the NCIS, yes, that's NCIS. You got the JSDF, which is the Japanese Self-Defense, and then, of course, those three clashing head-to-head bad guys. There's a lot of stuff going on in this book. So when you first start reading it, it might seem convoluted. And you would be right, it is convoluted when it starts. However, as the book progresses, these things start to meld together and they start to make sense a little bit more. And it makes me so much happier and relieved when it all makes sense. Because I hate convoluted stories. I hate it. But I like Jack Bauer. I liked the culture. I liked the setting of this Japanese area. Because when you're thinking about 24, you think about a lot of different countries he runs into. But I'm having trouble remembering if any of those were Japanese or if they were all China, because China was a big part of 24. Japanese, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think you really ran into Japan. And it was cool to see him in this area, this setting, and to see all these characters that kind of overlap. I was on board for a good majority of the book. I was disappointed that because this was a prequel, they didn't bring any of the already known characters from the universe in, like Tony Almeida or David Palmer or Chappelle or George Mason, but I get it, CTU hasn't been created yet, so it's just Jack Bauer's world. I get it, I do understand, a little disappointed, but it is what it is. Trial by Fire is pretty good, I think. It takes a while to get into, but once you're there, you won't stop. If you are to read it, stick through it, man. Just stick through it. It starts out convoluted. It ignores the format. It ignores a lot of stuff you think it probably shouldn't, and it probably shouldn't. But it gets there. It gets to where it wants to go, and it tells a complete story, one that I liked better than 24 Rogue. So check it out if you want. It's, it's everywhere. It's in bookstores, libraries, and I gave 24 Trial by Fire 4 out of 5 stars. Which again is better than 24 Rogue, but only slightly. If I could give it a more specific rating, I probably would have given it probably 3.5, 3.75. Not sure, but we'll just stick with 4. I'll give you that much. In the description, I have the link to my review for 24 Rogue, so check that out if you got time, and join me next week when I review Blood Defense, which is the first book in a new series written by Marcia Clark, who was the prosecuting attorney in the O.J. Simpson murder trial way back in the 90s. Yeah. So that ought to be interesting. See you then. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. If you have time, go ahead and subscribe to my channel or leave me a comment if you think there's a book I might enjoy or a book you might want me to review. put it down in the comments. I'll take a look at it. I'll consider it. And I'll see you next week. And remember, if you're bored, read something.
Poopy-doo.